अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं त्वं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादं सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपीशा गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, it becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Utamashloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Maha. The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Surabhyai Namaha.
Om Surabhyai Namaha.
Mukam karoti vācaram pāgum langayate girim. Yat kripat mahabande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yat kripat mahabande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. Short interruption last few days in terms of Bhagavatam class. In terms of Bhagavatam class, 7th Canto, we were reading Bhagavatam, first Canto. So we are continuing in the 15th chapter of the 7th Canto, chapter entitled Instructions for Civilized Human Beings. And we were supposed to do 58 last time. I believe we did not do it. So we have 58 on the board today. Abhadhito api hi abhaso yatha vastutaya smrita durgatatvad andriyakam tadvad artha vikalpitam abhadito piyabhaso yatha vastutaya smrita durgatatvad Aindriyakam Tadvad Artha Vikalpitam Abadhito Pihya Bhaso Yatha Vastu Tasya Smita Durgatatvad Aindriyakam Tadvad Artha Vikalpitam Abhajito Piya Bhaso Yatha Vastu Taya Smrita Durgatatvad Aindriyakam Tadvad Artha Vikalpitam Abhaditopya Vaso Yatha Vastu Taya Smita Durgatadvat Andriyakam Tadvad Artha Vikalpitam Abhaditopya Yatha Vastutaya Smrita Durgatatvat Aindriyakam Tadvat Artha Vikalpitam Abhadita rejected api although he certainly abhasa a reflection yatha as vastutaya a form of reality smrita accepted durgatatvat because of being very difficult to prove the reality. Aindriyakam, knowledge derived from the senses. Tadvat, similarly. Artha, reality. Vikalpitam, speculated or doubtful. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Although one may consider the reflection of the sun from the mirror to be false, it has its factual existence. Accordingly, to prove by speculative knowledge that there is no reality would be extremely difficult. Kind of repeat after me. Although one may consider the reflection of the sun from a mirror to be false, it has its factual existence. Accordingly, to prove by speculative knowledge that there is no reality would be extremely difficult. Purport. The impersonalists try to prove that the varieties in the vision of the empiric philosopher are false. The impersonalist philosophy, Vivartavada, generally cites the acceptance of a rope to be a snake as an example of this fact. According to this example, the varieties within our vision are false, just as a rope is seen to be a snake is false. The Vaishnavas say, however, that although the idea that the rope is a snake is false, the snake is not false. One has experience of a snake in reality, and therefore he knows that although the representation of the rope as a snake is false or illusory, there is a snake in reality. Similarly, this world, which is full of varieties, is not false. It is a reflection of the reality in the Vaikuntha world, the spiritual world. The reflection of the sun from a mirror is nothing but light within darkness. Thus, although it is not exactly sunlight, without the sunlight, the reflection would be impossible. Similarly, the varieties of this world would be impossible unless there were a real prototype in the spiritual world. The Mayavadi philosopher cannot understand this, but a real philosopher must be convinced that light is not possible at all without a background of sunlight. Thus, the jugglery of words used by the Mayavadi philosophers to prove that this material world is false may amaze inexperienced children, but a man with full knowledge knows perfectly well that there cannot be any existence without Krishna. Therefore, a Vaishnava insists on the platform of somehow or other accepting Krishna. Tasmat kenapyupayena mana Krishne niveshayet. When we raise our unmixed faith to the lotus feet of Krishna, everything is revealed. Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita 7:1, Maya Shakta Mana Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashraya Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Nasyasi. That's Srinu. Translation. Now hear, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. End of translation. Simply by raising one's staunch faith in Krishna and his instructions, one can understand reality without a doubt. Asamshayam samagram mam. One can understand how Krishna's material and spiritual energies are working and how he is present everywhere, although everything is not him. This philosophy of achintya Veda, inconceivable oneness and difference, is the perfect philosophy enunciated by the Vaishnavas. Everything is an emanation from Krishna, but it is not that everything must therefore be worshipped. Speculative knowledge cannot give us reality as it is, but will continue to be nefariously imperfect. So-called scientists try to prove that there is no God and that everything is happening because of the laws of nature. But this is imperfect knowledge, because nothing can work unless directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 9:10 by the Lord himself. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sataracharam hetu nanena kunteya jagat viparivartate. Translation: this material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. End of translation. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya gives this note. Durgatadvad artat vena parameshvar re naiva kalpitam. The background of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sadolava. This can be understood by a Mahatma who is perfect in knowledge. Such a Mahatma is rarely seen. Translation again. Although one may consider the reflection of the sun from a mirror to be false, it has its factual existence. Accordingly, to prove by speculative knowledge that there is no reality would be extremely difficult. So this is a philosophical text and philosophical purport. Which goes to the core and the essence of what Krishna consciousness is all about. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatade Satarine. Srila Prabhupada himself composed this second part of his pranam mantra to clearly demonstrate and articulate, clarify what the mission of the Krishna consciousness movement is, which is, of course, going to the heart and the essence of Vedic knowledge. Vedaisya sarvair aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavid eva aham. That Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, that there is such a concept, not a concept, such a reality as God. Prabhupada came out with this beautiful expression. He would say, just like there's office, there can be many offices, but there's one head office. So we hear about so many different gods in Shastra, so many references are there to God, but there is Godhead, there is one original personality of Godhead, who is referred to in the Shastra as Krishna. Many other names are there, but the original name is Krishna. So the point being discussed here is in specific reference to Mayavad philosophy, who claim the material world to be false, to be illusory. Of course, we say that Vaishnavas, as Prabhupada explains here, their understanding, our understanding, is that the material manifestation is temporary. It is a reflection of the original reality which exists in the spiritual world. And of course today we were reading a few minutes ago before the Bhagavatam class. Today is the appearance, right, of Srila Jiva Goswami. And he is one of many of our Vaishnavacharyas. Of course, he's foremost in many ways of having preached very strongly this philosophy of pure understanding, reconciling the various differences, even the differences within our own Vaishnav, our different sampradayas. We are touching the course that you're supposed to be giving on Vaishnav philosophy. Our Goswamis, of course, in particular Srila Jiva Goswami, they are in their very profound and extensive literatures on the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, have simply put into writing what they have received, what they have heard from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the unique contribution, the most important contribution of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to have reconciled whatever differences are there. And two things. One is very strongly establishing the personal aspect of God, establishing that Krishna is that Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in particular introducing this philosophy of Achinta Bheda Tattva, Veda Abheda. Just like when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, since the topic is largely philosophy this morning, we cannot do without philosophy. Actually, at least basic philosophy everyone should have in life. Unfortunately, in our educational system, it is like philosophy is like an option. It should not be an option. what are the two types of courses? One is like they call certain courses you have to take.
Co-curricular activity.
Huh?
Curricular and co-curricular.
Curricula and co-curricular. Yeah. I guess there's different words to describe. Some are mandatory, some are optional. But philosophy should never be optional. Philosophy should be, it is a must, it is essential. Actually, in the Vedic system of education, one cannot take up any branch of education without first taking philosophy. This is how the Vedic system of education is arranged. The Chatur Vidya first comes Anvikshiki. Anvikshiki means in the Western expression, Western world, what is called metaphysics. Physics means material. Metaphysics, what is beyond matter. Metaphysics. So Anvikshiki is the beginning of proper knowledge or understanding, and it is broken up in three divisions. One being Sankhya philosophy, then yoga, Sankhya, yoga, and Tarka, which is a very important aspect actually of philosophy, how to present what is called the Siddhanta. Siddhanta means actual conclusion of knowledge. And this is only possible, of course, by those who are well versed in the Shastra. So this concept of Veda Abheda is part of the Dasamula Tattva. You've read the Dasamula Tattva? It's a very brief book. Yeah. So it's a small book, but it's very powerful because Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has kind of like summarized the essential tattvas, transcendental truth regarding the living entity. He actually establishes, as Srila Jiva Goswami also establishes, the first primary aspect which is absolutely necessary, which is of course rejected by modern day scientists and most educationalists as well, and philosophers. But the first point being that actually the source of all knowledge is the Vedas, isn't it? As opposed to just speculation, which is a modern way of trying to see or to understand. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur begins by establishing that all knowledge is originating from Veda. The very word Veda means knowledge. And that knowledge is revealed knowledge, revealed by, because that knowledge goes beyond material knowledge. So you cannot have someone who is limited and within the material world by himself reveal something that is out of the purview of material knowledge of the material world. So what is beyond material knowledge has to come from outside the material world, and of course that is how Vedic knowledge is revealed from the original transcendental source, means revealed by Krishna himself. So after establishing this first of the 10 tattvas, then very interestingly, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains about the tattva of Krishna in 3 features. Then he explains the tattva of the jiva in 4 features. That the jiva is amsa. He begins by explaining how the jiva is mamai vangsho jiva loke. Jiva bhuta sanatana is the eternal part and parcel. So that immediately defeats the Mayavad philosophy that the jiva can become supreme or God. So the jiva is eternally amsa, part and parcel. And then the jiva is falling in one of 2 categories, either mukta jiva or baddha jiva. Majority of living entities being mukta jiva, because majority of living entities are not in the material world, they are in the spiritual world. And the 4th aspect of the jiva, which is connected with the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Veda Abeda. Veda Abeda. Veda means different. Living entity is different in quality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is non-different from the Lord in terms of quality and nature, being also eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss, Satchitananda Vigraha. So, Srila Jiva Goswami, naturally when we think about Srila Jiva Goswami, we think about his Sat Sandarbhas, which are very, I have not studied in detail. I've read some they were only translated in English by our own devotees a few years back, actually. So it is very very interesting to read translations or explanations of our Vaishnavacharyas. We can get a glimpse. We can get a glimpse of how they deal with subject matters, how they think, and how they immediately, very quickly actually, that was something in reading the Tattva Sandarbha, the first of the 6 Sandarbhas, how Srila Jiva Goswami very quickly, it's like when you read philosophy from people who are speculating, they just go round and round and round. Whereas our Vaishnavacharyas, in particular, I haven't read so many commentaries, that's a whole other subject matter which also needs to be part of our Vaishnava Research Institute, gathering all of the different commentaries of our Vaishnava Acharyas, from whom actually Srila Prabhupada, as we know, he would be translating the Bhagavatam, giving many of their realizations and understandings. Because naturally the subject matter, just like reading this purport, which is essentially speaking about philosophy, philosophy, Prabhupada would explain, and we also can understand, is not the forte of people in Kali Yuga. People cannot discuss very much or cannot understand philosophy very much, especially philosophy that is presented by those who are speculating. But our Vaishnava philosophy is meant to be taken up and studied actually by devotees, especially those who are, especially in the, those who are Dvija. Actually, they are meant to study at least amongst those 3 Dvijas, means the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. The Brahmanas are meant to very deeply actually study. And And that's wonderful actually because, and it is also necessary, and that's what Srila Jiva Goswami was most fortunate to be able to do. He was studying under Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, who were very, his seniors, and therefore he received their full mercy in presenting, because as we know, after the departure of Rupa and Sanatan, he became like the Acharya, Vaishnava Acharya, the Acharya for all the Vaishnava community. And Prabhupada comments how Srila Jiva Goswami is not only recognized in our Vaishnava Sampradaya, but he's also recognized by other philosophers as being foremost intellectual philosopher who presented very nicely the very difficult to, not possible actually to refute the presentations given by Srila Jiva Goswami. So if this material world, as it is explained in our Vaishnava philosophy, is a reflection of the original thing, then anyone with a little bit of intelligence should want to know what is that original thing, isn't it? Everyone is enamored and attracted and completely immersed in the reflection of the reality. And that reflection of reality means what we refer to as the material rasa. Material rasa is a reflection of the original spiritual rasa. And because Krishna creates, whatever he does, so even this material creation is therefore done in a very complete and perfect manner. So therefore, this reflection, this material reflection, this material rasa is completely absorbing the minds of everyone in the material world, and continues to absorb everyone's mind until they actually come to even know that there's something, that the original thing, the original rasa, the original feelings, the original whatever one may experience in this material world, which is temporary and not satisfying, not able to give the kind of satisfaction that the living entity actually is hankering for, but that original thing is actually existing, but not in the material world. But fortunately, although it's not existing in the material world, it can become manifest. It can actually become experienced by taking to the process that is recommended by our acharyas, because we were discussing about sound vibration the other day, how there's two levels of sound vibration: material sound vibration, but also transcendental spiritual sound vibration. In a similar way also, there are ordinary so-called material activities, but these same so-called seemingly material activities, when they are performed in connection with Krishna or for the satisfaction of Krishna, means devotional activities, then they take on a transcendental dimension, spiritual dimension. So that is what Krishna consciousness is about, how to reconnect with that original, with the actual reality which is there in the spiritual world, And those who are acharyas, and of course Krishna himself through his different incarnations, when they descend, or when the acharyas perform their leelas, their activities, they help to manifest, isn't it? They help to manifest that spiritual dimension. They gradually introduce, and Prabhupada would explain in the Nectar Devotion series that just like when a young man and a young woman decide to get married, which is natural for the vast majority of conditioned souls in the material world. So Prabhupada explains it's natural for a young woman to want to become a mother, to have a child. But she cannot immediately, okay, I'm married now, where's my child? She has to wait. There is a process, and there's a time factor as well. So in a similar way, those who are fortunate to come in contact with this philosophy of Krishna consciousness and to come in contact with, to be connected. This is we are not alone. In Krishna consciousness, we are having the guidance and the assistance and the knowledge of so many transcendentalists. Our whole Guru Parampara is full of immensely advanced and realized souls, one of them being Narada Muni, who's giving us this knowledge in this section of the Bhagavatam. And therefore, we simply have to, take in. Take in means to gradually allow this knowledge to be heard, and when we apply and follow the instructions that are given by these Mahajans, so I think in the purport Prabhupada makes this point as well, only one who is Mahatma, which is very rare, has access to understanding, to realizing the subject matter of tattva, because philosophy means tattva. And of course, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, tattvadarshini, what one can become a seer. We speak of great seers, those who are able to see the truth. And so there is a system, there is a process. There's a standard system. That's also important to understand. In the material world, people who are speculating, they try to introduce different systems. They try to create or invent different formulas. But because those are created from their limited, imperfect intelligence, those do not give us the real knowledge or the real thing, what we are seeking. So therefore, part of our life as devotees is to constantly turn our attention towards what these great personalities like Srila Jiva Goswami have given us, to try and further our understanding and realization of what they are explaining, and to introduce that, to present that to other conditioned souls so that they can stop being bewildered in the material world. So I'll just read the verse again here, short translation. Although one may consider the reflection of the sun from a mirror to be false, it has its factual existence. Accordingly, to prove by speculative knowledge that there is no reality would be extremely difficult. Any comments, questions on this? Okay. Jai Grantha Rasma Bhagavatam ki, Jai Sri Prabhupada ki, Gauda Pimanandi.